This 9/11 case is the biggest criminal trial in U.S. history. I would venture to say it's one of the biggest criminal trials in all of history. And to be honest, I don't know how exactly it's gonna work. We were talking through it yesterday in team meeting and yesterday evening, and we just don't, there's no real protocol for this. It's never happened before, so, and it's not easy. Excuse me 1 minute. It actually always makes me just a little bit upset that they play it right before we go in the courtroom to hear the government talk about why the Constitution doesn't apply here. And that's really the only thing I can think of every time they play the national anthem at 8 a.m. here. I really love hearing it, but it's so incongruous with the rest of this place.
Good afternoon. My name is James Connell, and along with Lieutenant Colonel Sterling Thomas of the United States Air Force and Alka Pradhan, we are the attorneys for Ammar al-Baluchi.
There is a position at the Department of Defense wherein I get paid to stand up and point out what the Department of Defense is doing wrong.
We're sort of the redheaded stepchild of the Department of Defense. It's our role under the Office of Secretary of Defense to provide legal representation services to men who are charged or have identified as possibly will be charged in the military commissions at Guantanamo Bay. We represent Ammar al-Baluchi. His uncle, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, is considered to be the leader behind the 9/11 attacks. But the biggest charge against him is that in the conspiracy that led up to the attacks, he was given some money, somebody called him and asked for that money, and he wired the money to that person. Guantanamo occupies a strange space in American jurisprudence, which is why it was selected. It was the legal equivalent of outer space in the thinking of the Bush administration.
It's considered extraterritorial to many of the laws of the United States. So we asked what provisions of the Constitution apply here at Guantanamo, and we got sort of a wait and see. We'll decide that as each issue arises, which is quite a challenge. Okay, guys, we have about 3 days before the next hearing, so this is our opportunity to talk about some of the strategic goals we have.
Our projection on our team timeline is for a 2020 trial. One of the ways that I try to run the team is let goals be organizing principles instead of goalposts that we might or might not meet. About 10 years ago in my capital practice, we lost all the time. And at the end of losing, often our clients got executed. And so if our personal satisfaction came from accomplishing goals like saving people's lives and winning motions, then we were going to burn out awfully fast. And then we would not be helping anybody. So what we can do is beautiful work today, and outcomes will fall where they may.
It is a unique position to be a uniformed officer whose job is to take on the government. You have to let go of all your presumptions about how the government is going to be above board about what they're doing, or how they're going to practice in this particularly important trial. I am an active duty military officer. I was given the mission in 2010 to defend detainees at Guantanamo, and in so doing today, I'm speaking on behalf of my client, Mr. Ammar al-Baluchi. He suffered unspeakable torture. For many of you who watch this sort of movie, perhaps you've seen Zero Dark 30. The person who is
Depicted in the first 25 minutes of that movie is my client, Ammar.
I own you, Ammar.
He was arrested in Pakistan in 2003.
Look at me.
And transferred to CIA custody shortly thereafter.
Look at me, Ammar!
He was shackled for months at a time in stress positions. He was subjected to sexual humiliation. He was made to stand for days at a time. He was beaten brutally. He was tortured with water.
We asked, how did the director of Zero Dark 30 get all this information? And received in discovery that she had access to CIA records. But we're denied because they say it's not relevant. A movie director gets greater access than a defense counsel. That's the kind of thing that's happening in our 9/11 war court.
This is a death penalty trial, and we're supposed to be entitled to every scrap of evidence that could be material to the case.
Everywhere we go, we're looking for information that we have not gotten from the US government, like where they may have been held, which the government has said absolutely flat out they consider to be classified and will never tell us. That's sort of crucial to the case.
For years, everything that Ammar said was classified. You know, if he said, excuse me, can I go to the restroom, that was classified. That was exceptionally complicated. One of the few things that we've sort of won in the case is having that system rolled back. And so now his ordinary day-to-day communications are not classified. But even now, anything that he wants to say about his time in black sites, we have to have reviewed for classification. That's just one example of self-inflicted wounds that the United States government imposes on itself and the people who work for it that make things super complicated.
Personally, I'd like to see this move a little quicker, but it is a powerful thing for myself to come down here, witness it, to see it in action. But slow as the action might be sometimes.
Each time at Guantanamo, we extend invitation to victim family members who are there to observe the proceedings. And I see my role as to not deflect their pain, but to accept and absorb their pain, to make myself vulnerable to what they're feeling.
Some of the things that the defense argues, they've argued before. And why is it that we have a space in this world, in our United States, that they can do that? And I guess
I can never experience what they've experienced, but to have someone listen to them, which is what I try to do, is often, I think, helpful.
The fact that we're spending 2 years or more developing the process for this is quite irritating from my perspective, and I'm sure other people feel the same way. It's, I'm not saying it's an open and closed case, but is there a better way to figure out what the process should be than having defense lawyers and prosecution lawyers arguing that out point by point? I don't think this is going to be resolved in my lifetime.
Where we are in the proceedings currently is the pretrial phase, which we've been in now for many years.
When I took the job, I had a position not to exceed 18 months. That was in summer of 2011. I thought the case was going to be in trial by September 11th of 2012, but everything about that turned out to be wrong. Part of the reason pretrial litigation is taking so long is the government keeps interfering with its own prosecution, mostly by intrusions into the defense teams.
For 4.5 years, the government has illegally reviewed our attorney-client privileged communications. They tried to place an informant on one of the defense teams. They have put listening devices in our meeting rooms.
The smoke detectors, which were oddly placed, right next to the table where you had to sit to talk to your client, not on the ceiling where smoke would normally go, were in fact sound detection devices.
Every discovery request comes back denied. every request for a witness is denied. And so every day we try to just chip away a little bit more at this crazy institution that the government has built.
Usually we do this in India, to go to temples and stuff, so this part I'm used to. But the problem is I use my hands too much when I talk. I'm always in danger of it falling off.
I'm not Muslim, but I do wear a hijab in the courtroom because these guys were all tortured pretty badly, in some cases by females. So wearing the hijab is just kind of a mark of respect when you're trying to build a trust relationship. Little things like that could be helpful to the case.
We're cooking for the guys who come for the trial this morning for the military commission. It's the second day of the military commission, so not everybody has to come. But if they want to come, then we provide the breakfast and the lunch for them. This is for my client and for all the other clients too. We basically take turns. Yesterday was Al-Hassawi's day to provide breakfast and lunch. Today is the al-Baluchi day to provide breakfast and lunch. Tomorrow will be something else. This is za'atar. It's basically the ordinary breakfast in the Middle East.
Anytime we visit them in the camps, we have to work with whatever the camp provides them. But in the courtroom, there is a little more flexibility, so we can provide them some things that have a little closer taste of home. So I've done this a few times for Ammar, and he seems to appreciate it. He likes to take the za'atar and dip it in the egg yolk. You know, when I took criminal law and criminal procedure, they didn't cover this. This was not in the syllabus.
Well, I've always appreciated that JTF lets us do it.
Yeah, it helps them, which helps the whole situation go more smoothly.
It also encourages them to come to court, which the prosecution wants, victim family members want, media wants, everybody wants. I have a lot of experience in capital litigation, a lot of criminal defense experience, but ironically, I use almost none of that in my current job. In many ways, the sheer difficulty of the legal construct here is what attracted me to getting involved in the case. Lots of people in the government feel that they should cut corners because such a heinous crime has been committed, but to me, it seemed like the place of greatest need, and so that's why I wanted to go there. It is essentially the question of, would you rather criticize a process from the outside or fight against it from the inside? And I'm a fight it against it from the inside kind of person.
Certain people feel like we're legitimizing the system. But there would be no one to point out that all of those values that we violated post-September 11th continue to be violated 16 years later. And these men would be held indefinitely without anyone to present their side of it.
This is not going to win me a popularity contest, but it's the right thing to do because there are these issues with this military commission and these laws that allow us to treat these men differently than we would treat others. We need to challenge that.
There is a way of prosecuting acts of terror. There's a way of obtaining justice for our client, but this is not the way of doing it. We're far beyond any point where we can actually have a real trial. Just from the difficulty in getting down here and getting access to anything while you're down here, the government at every juncture tries to stop public access to this trial. And they're succeeding. I mean, they're winning.
This is the biggest criminal trial in US history.
So it is so frustrating to me how few people are watching what's happening down here.